Big time fight coming up at light heavyweight this weekend. We have a parlay buster, Matt. Kennedy Nzechukwu coming out of Fortis MMA, only one blemish on his record to the ranked submission specialist, Paul Craig. He's going to be taking on an interesting fighter out of Phil Collins' favorite fighter in MMA, Sseda. It's Un Jung. And Matt, for Un Jung, this is a fighter where I thought I had the code cracked. I thought I had this guy figured out. He pumps the jab out there like it's going out of style. And listen, this is going to be a generalization, but out of fighters at Korean Top Team and one of his main training partners in the Iron Turtle, you look at the way that these two guys fight, very similar. And I said that for his teammates' fight here, what? Was it a couple of weeks ago when he took on Gregory Rodriguez? Yeah. Pumping that jab out there 1, 2, 3 times. Really good boxing. In and out so well. And if we have to mix in wrestling, wow. Well, I can do that too. But the weird thing is for Un Jung, the wrestling wasn't necessarily always a focal point of his offense. And you look at this guy, he's undefeated since 2015. He's won 13 straight fights. He has a win over Hulk. Go look that guy up, former professional wrestler and mixed martial artist. His losses, his last loss was to Roque Martinez in 2015. Like, that's how crazy Un Jung's overall career has been. But in the UFC, Matt, it's been filled with, do I want to say ups and downs? It's mostly ups and one down, but you look at it so far in his UFC career, he submits Hadis Ibrahimov 2 years ago. He knocks out Mike Rodriguez with a right cross. He has a split draw against Sam Alvey, and then he comes out his next fight against William Knight. Now, the boys from Fight Night Picks were wrong that night. He went out there and wrestled William Knight, who's a pretty darn good wrestler in his own right, and Un Jung looked amazing in that fight. Matt, I wrote down the scorecards from MMA decisions on that one. There were 4 30-25s. There was 10 30-26s. There was 1 30-27. Un Jung was on so much that night. And again, I want to give credit where credit's due because I mentioned the Iron Turtle, Jin Young Park, but the guys that he's training with right now, Un Jung and Dong Jin Ha, are a couple of the guys over there that are really putting things together. Matt, Korean Top Team, again, I get it. Jin Young Park lost the other week. He was looking good until he didn't, but they're really putting it together over at that gym. But when I look at this fight, again, my mind tells me Un Jung's going to win this fight. And then I look at what Kennedy Nzechukwu has been able to do in his last fight. You want to talk about war of attrition? He's getting beat by Carlos Ulberg hard in the first round. And then he comes right back because Carlos Ulberg had no cardio. And then in his last fight, he's taken on, just hear me out, he's taken on Danilo Marquez, where he's in every single bad grappling position you could be at, of a guy that corners tons of fighters, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, black belt, like the guy. And we thought, oh, A, Carlos Ulberg's going to win. But B, well, surely Danilo Marquez is going to submit Kennedy Nzechukwu. Nope. Not whatsoever. And in the later stages of that fight, oh, Kennedy turns it on again and gets another finish. Like, Matt, we have to finally give Kennedy Nzechukwu his flowers. And you talk about guys that seem like the nice guys in MMA. Kennedy Nzechukwu, listen, for caring with for his mother with ALS, to kind of putting his career here and there on the back burner, like, and the way that he speaks and comes across, he seems like one of the nicest guys going.
Yeah, he really does. Now, I agree with everything you said, but I hate the way you framed it. This is the thing. It's not like Ulberg just got tired and that's why Kennedy won that fight. It was the pressure of Kennedy, which really chipped away at Carlos Ulberg. Like, I really think it was more of what Nzechukwu was doing well and less of what Ulberg did poorly in that fight. Because yes, Carlos Ulberg moving forward is a handful and he's got great technique and he's very flashy with his strikes. But just pressure beats a lot of that stuff. And we see it in MMA all the time. You need distance to get off all those flashy strikes. And Carlos Ulberg needed distance in that fight. And once Kennedy was able to crash forward, make it an ugly fight, he was able to land absolute bombs.
Which is so strange for a guy at 6'5" with 83 inches of reach to have to crash distance. And I know even watching his Contender Series fights, Matt, before I hand it on over to you, the big thing was, can he get that fire? Can he get that killer instinct? Because he's been so reserved, especially the first Contender Series fight. And then as soon as he lets it go, he usually closes distance, throws a big right hand or a head kick. And it's like, wow, this guy's really special.
Yeah. He's like Uriah Hall, kind of, where when he's aggressive and when he's on, there's barely anybody who can beat them. And it really does feel like it is kind of the mindset switch. Now, the difference is Kennedy can win fights even without the knockout or without the stoppage. With Uriah Hall, he kind of relies on that stoppage a little bit too much. Like, there's not a lot of Uriah Hall unanimous decision wins out there because he is so reliant on that one strike capability. But with Nzechukwu, he can win just based off of his volume numbers. And the thing about
There's
this fight
only 3
is
of them.
What?
There's only 3 decision wins. I just want to say that. And I mean,
I
2 of them were in his first 3 fights.
He's only got 9 wins. How many more decision ones do you want? Really? Yeah, a third of his wins are by decision. Like a third of them are by knockout and a third of them are by submission. What? I don't get why that's a knock. That's a really good thing to have. That's what I like out of Nzechukwu. He doesn't just have to rely on the finish because he does have really good output, especially for this division. And we saw that in his last fight. I don't know why you're shaking your head. His 2 fights ago was a great example. He's got good pressure because he can use it to beat fighters who don't have good cardio. Not sure what all the head shaking was for. This is the thing that I think is going to be really important. If Kennedy can dig underhooks immediately in this fight, similar to what we saw Alexander Volkov able to do against Marcin Tybura over and over and over again, he might be able to win this fight just based on height and physicality alone. Because with Un Jung, he's not the type of wrestler who's going to go out there and really chain as much together as he will just put his force on top of you. Like, he makes you feel his takedown attempts. It's not a lot of that pretty stuff, Daniel Cormier, Derek Lewis, where it's like, okay, I'm going to feel your shoulder, go for the ankle pick. It's a lot of that, oh, I'm going to get you up against the cage. You're going to feel my physicality. I'm going to go down, shoot for the 2 legs, pull them out, and really make you feel my pressure. Against a guy like Kennedy, I think that's a really hard game plan, honestly. With his size and with his reach, especially in this division, I think he's going to be able to at least get big numbers early in the fight. Now, does that mean he's going to be able to win it 10 times out of 10? No, but I think that if he can just stay on the back foot and not be the aggressive fighter we've seen in his last 2 performances, but sort of let the fight come to him and just let his hands go naturally, I think he can have a really good opportunity to win this fight.
So the odds for this one, Matt, Un Jung open to -225 favorite. He's a -127 right now. For Nzechukwu, open to +188. He's a +104. If we have a look at Tapology, again, those odds, I didn't actually write them down for this one, so I'm going on the flow. I have no idea what they actually are. The Tapology votes for this one, Matt, 843 total votes, 51%. Nzechukwu, 19% by decision, 72% by knockout. For the 49% that have Jung, 70% by decision, 19% by knockout. The reason I shook my head earlier, 2/3 of Kennedy's wins, 6, are by knockout, 1/3 are by decision. I wouldn't say he's a big decision fighter, especially
if he had
in UFC.
One more decision win, we'd be saying half his fights are almost by decision. It's the numbers.
His one decision win in the UFC should have been a loss, but listen, nut shots were getting handed out like, I don't know, cotton candy at a fair against Darko Stosic, and that's the reason why he won. He knew he shouldn't have won that fight, and he kind of talked about it after the fact. It was kind of awkward, but still, I just wouldn't go with that narrative. I think for Kennedy, you're right. He's one of those guys that does have staying power, especially later on in a fight, and he's the type of light heavyweight that definitely can conserve himself very well. Hear me out. Un Jung's a cardio king. He hits the point, but he can hit to finish as well. And I think he's the more well-rounded fighter in a matchup like this. For those reasons, I really do like Sseda, and I'm going with Un Jung in this fight.
I agree with the well-rounded fact or point. It just, I don't think he's excels enough at anything to really go out there and put it on Nzechukwu. Like, of his A-level skills, I would say the majority of Un Jung's are kind of B level. I wouldn't say he does anything at the C level. I would just say he's very well rounded at everything. And for me, I think he's going to have to use the takedown, kind of like we saw Frankie Edgar use against Marlon Vera in their fight. Early on in that fight, when he is able to mix in the takedown with his punches, he's going off. It looks like former champion Edgar again. We could see a similar performance from Un Jung where he's looking really good. Kick. Well, okay, we're probably not going to see that. But if he is able to mix in the takedown, especially early, and start to wear on Nzechukwu, Kennedy won't be able to get off to a really big lead with his volume. I just think with his footwork and with his build, it's going to be really hard for Un Jung to get on the inside of Nzechukwu. And that's why I think he's going to be able to win this one.
Big time fight coming up for Jung. Went 2 of 3 in the first round against Knight in takedown attempts, 3 of 3 in the second round, and 3 of 3 in the third round. It makes it for an interesting contest. But Matt, you and I are split on this pick. You have the man himself, the African savage, Kennedy Nzechukwu, big time fighter at light heavyweight. I'm going with South Korea's Un Jung, and I could have mentioned an elevation joke in there earlier because you said he didn't have any C-level qualities. But Matt, This is going to be an awesome fight on a great card. Max Holloway taking on Yair Rodriguez in the main event. You're not going to want to miss this. Keep locked in with Fight Night picks. As we always say,
let's get into it.